Welcome to another episode of In My Garage. This time, we meet someone whose lifelong obsession with classic Volkswagens has led him to make it his job. And we're not looking at a Kombi or a Beetle. Peter Arnoldi, can you please tell us what's in your garage?
Let me open the door and show you.
The legendary Meyers Manx. It's such a legendary car, isn't it, the Meyers Manx?
It is indeed, yeah.
Can you tell us, just for those who don't know, a bit of the history behind the car? You know, most people would be aware it looks a lot like a Volkswagen in some ways, but very different in others.
Well, they were basically made by a man called Bruce Meyers in California. And Bruce Meyers, he said that it was like the surfy beach buggy and the mudguards should be flat so that you could rest a beer on it. That was his thing. So he was the first one to make beach buggies. These beach buggies became famous because it was the freedom, all of that in California in those days, and they were in the movies. Elvis was in a movie with a Meyers Manx beach buggy, but he had a much taller windscreen so it didn't mess his hair up.
Yeah.
And then Steve McQueen.
Yeah, Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah, Thomas Crown Affair, that's correct, yeah. He had a 6-cylinder Chev motor in the back.
Yeah, yeah. The Corvair engine.
The Corvair, that's correct. The air-cooled Chev motor. So, the iconic. So Meyers Manx beach buggy is original.
Yeah. Could you tell us, for those in the know, how you tell the difference between an original Meyers Manx and a knockoff?
Well, the quick way of telling is one front mudguard is higher than the other, slightly higher. That's just the way they were made, right? The other way you can tell, they have a little hump in the bonnet here, where that badge sits on, and under the mudguards, they have a channel fiberglassed in for the wiring.
But just on the badge, it's a pretty striking looking design.
Yes.
I assume that the reason they called it a Manx is because of the connection, you know, no tail on the animal and a pretty cut off back end on the car.
That's correct.
Is there any other reason?
I don't know, maybe the Manx name made it a bit more sporty, like the Isle of Man, the Manx Nortons or something like that. But I think it was basically that the cat didn't have a tail and this didn't have a tail on it either. And this badge is an aluminium badge, which is Australian manufactured Manx body, and the American ones, they were plastic.
Yeah, and the metal ones are what people really want, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're
that's right.
Quite sought after.
Because they don't break with the sun and stuff like that. But I thought this would be a fun thing to take to Broome behind our camper. So it's got attachment points here for a A-frame.
Does it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I've made an A-frame for it. I still have to get that certified.
Yep.
But it'll be fun to go to Broome and drive Cable Beach or somewhere in the beach buggy.
There for one of those.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah.
How much length was taken out of the original Beetle floor pan?
I don't remember exactly. I think it's something like maybe 14 inches or something like that.
It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like that much.
Yeah. And it must make them. Does it make them quite tricky to drive in some ways, or does it really help things?
I was very particular with the wheel alignment on this car because I didn't want something that went all over the road, and it actually drives quite nice. Yeah?
And so, where did you find this one?
This body was in Malaga. It was in somebody's front garden, and it was all pulled apart.
So it had been apart for a long time?
Yeah, it had been apart for a long time. It had algae in it and leaves and everything. It was in a guy's front garden. He advertised it for sale, and I had a beach buggy before, but it wasn't a Meyers Manx. And so when the Meyers Manx came along, the other beach buggy got rebodied as a Meyers Manx.
So you had the mechanicals largely already?
Yes, I did, yeah.
So it's just the body that he had, or?
He had other bits as well, but he didn't have any proof of previous registration. And I already had that. So I fitted the Manx body
right onto your other...
Onto my beach buggy.
And what sort of era when was that, roughly?
Well, this took me about 4 years to build.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah,
time well spent.
There was lots of little hiccups. It had lots of holes in it where people had drilled and so on previously, and they all needed to be fiberglassed up, and they need to be closed off. And the other major problem that I had was how to fit the front bonnet, right? It was a serious issue. And a friend who also has a Manx, but his is a replica, he loaned me a book that was the book was written by William Shakespeare's nephew. Right. The famous Shakespeare's nephew wrote a book on building beach buggies.
Wow. Who would have thought, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So in that book, he explained what sort of aircraft fittings and how to go about fitting a front bonnet on a Manx so that it was, because it has to be removed.
What did he call it?
The fuel tank is under there. So it was these little aircraft fittings that are held on with some pop rivets and have a wiggly nut in them to allow for different angles.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were the answer.
Yeah.
And the other guy had used them. My mate Sean had used them on his. And that was the answer. That was the trick, yeah.
So what did he call the book? To beach buggy or not to beach buggy?
I'm not sure.
And so this was his most famous design, wasn't it?
Yes.
But he did make one after this, didn't he? A more squared off looking...
He made several versions.
Yep.
He had something called a toad that you could tow behind a car.
Yeah.
And some of them actually had fiberglass floors and all sorts of things, but this was the sort of most successful one.
This was his calling card, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so looking at the interior, there's definitely some familiarity with the cream painted gear shifter and the shifter base and the steering column. Well, we're all really used to seeing those original Volkswagen wheels on there, but it looks like you have to be pretty limber to get behind the wheel with those big diameter steering wheels.
Exactly. So a smaller steering wheel was put in just so that you could get legs past it and get in there. With the bigger steering wheel, you can't drive them properly because you're trying to push the clutch and everything with bowed legs, right? You need a bit more space for your legs.
And the gauges look a little bit familiar.
Yeah, I tried to give this car a bit of a Porsche theme. So the gauges are replica Porsche 356 gauges, and the wheels are replica 356 Porsche wheels, and the hubcaps are 356A hubcaps, and soon we will get a motor that says Porsche on the hubcap on the tappet covers, even though it's not. But there was hiccups along the way, like windscreen wipers. I've actually got the windscreen wipers parking, and they have 2 speeds. So that was a feat in itself. You know?
That can sound quite mundane to most people, but
but
getting that done, I know the feeling.
It was difficult.
And did you build the bar, the roll bar, and all that sort of thing?
I found a wonderful man advertised on Gumtree that he built a roll bar. So I rang him up, and he was super professional. These bits here, they're roll cage joiners, and they're made in South Australia. And so because of that, you can actually make the roll cage in 2 pieces and put it into the car.
And slide it
and connect it together.
Okay, gotcha.
And it's just as strong.
So that's brilliant, isn't it?
I found it a really nice guy. So,
all right, tell us about the engine, Peter.
The engine is a slightly later engine, the 1600cc, and that funny exhaust system was always on the beach buggy. So I reused it just to show another part of its authenticity, that it was a beach buggy.
It must be a very light thing. What does it weigh? Sort of under
the whole beach buggy weighs about 550 kilos. So it's not much.
And can you tell us the story about this very special looking number plate here?
That number plate used to be on a harbour blue VW microbus at the Volkswagen dealers at Western Motors in Subiaco, and that was their courtesy coach that used to take people into the city. And I said, "What's the story with that number plate? You've got it on an Audi, and is there any chance I can get it?" And he said, "Oh, I'll see what I can do." And he wrote me a letter of relinquishment. So I took that and the number plates, and I went in there and paid my $70, and I got VW number 1. So I was very pleased.
This is such a eye-catching thing compared to ambient traffic, more so maybe even than the average classic car, if there is such a thing. What sort of response do you get from when you take it for a drive and you take it to Cars and Coffee or wherever?
You drive down the road and there's little kids at the side of the road and they look at it and they wave and, you know, like it's a really happy sort of car, you know, people quite like it.
It looks it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And what do you use it for primarily?
Well, it's not very practical. with blonde hair and fair skin. I have to put the sun cream on and I just take it for a drive, car shows. I'm in several car clubs. West Australian Beach Buggy Association, Volkswagen Car Club, Porsche Car Club, Alfa Romeo Car Club.
Yeah.
So I'm in lots of car clubs, so I take it to some car events. And
Peter, it's very hard to ignore the company that the Manx keeps in this garage. Can you tell us something about each of the beautiful cars that are around us today?
Well, how my love for Porsche started, when I was a little kid, my dad had a friend that started Amherst Motors, and I used to go there and look at a blue 356B in the showroom window, and I'd think, one day I'll have one of them. Yeah. But they were always a bit out of my reach. Finally, I bought a 911, because that was cheaper than a 356. We've had that for 28 years. And a few years back, about 4 or 5 years back, I decided I had to have a 356. So I looked for about 3 months. I found this one. I rang the guy up and I said, look, I'm interested in your car, but I'm in Australia. It's going to take me a little while to get there. It was a Sunday night. And I said, will you hang on to it till Wednesday or Thursday of next week to get me a chance to get to LA?
Upstairs here.
Yeah, the 356 Speedster replica. Fiberglass body.
And floor pan is what?
Volkswagen. Yeah. But independent rear suspension with the beam front axle.
And this took you quite some time to build.
I thought it was 18 years, but my wife said it took 20 years.
And this one here, you're going to make it a little bit more extraordinary than...
In West Australia, ragtop Beetles were never sold.
So these are those big sort of Webasto style
sunroof. Goldie sunroof, big sunroof. Exactly the same as Herbie in the movies, but they were never sold. I've reinforced the chassis a bit and it's getting a disc brake conversion and it's getting bigger brakes and a slightly taller differential and better parts. It's getting a bit of an upgrade.
So Peter, your garage, you had the unique opportunity to design it around your hobby, didn't you?
Yes, that's right, yeah. Well, I had a lot of equipment still from when I was in business and it didn't have much value to sell. And I thought, well, when I'm retired, I can fix my cars and my bits and pieces. So keep all the welders and the machines and everything and built this garage so that I can keep tinkering.
Yeah, and it's got some very desirable features, hasn't it, with these 2 lifts in here.
Yeah.
The tremendous height to the ceiling, so you can have a bonnet up on the top of the lift and still have some space.
Yeah.
And you've got some fantastic old machines and workshop tools here, haven't you?
Oh yeah, I've got lots of special tools for VW and Audi and it's my hobby, so may as well keep them.
Yeah, the dream garage.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people would love to have this garage.
No doubt. So Peter, the only remaining task now is to go for a drive.
That's right.
Can we?
Let's do it.
Infectious sound, isn't it?
It's nice, yeah.
So you've got plans to take this to its natural habitat in Broome, is that right?
Yeah, that was the plan, to take it to Broome behind the camper and drive along Cable Beach, and thought that would be rather nice to do that.
Peter, you've got a story around having to call on the RAC in your vehicle history.
Yeah. I joined the RAC roadside assistance because we were going to Tasmania with our Porsche 911. Got us to Tasmania, around Tasmania and back. And when I came back, the electronic ignition failed coming up the freeway after being to Dwellingup. Called the RAC. RAC sent a truck out from Fremantle, came and got us. And when it got home, the faulty electronic part had cooled down. The car started. And I drove it into the garage.
So it was really the planning for the Tasmania trip that helped you out here.
It was very convenient having the roadside assist.
Well, Peter, thanks so much for sharing your car and your garage with us today. It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure.
Look forward to seeing you at Classic Cars and Coffee soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.